When it comes to stacking and combining peptides, there are some very common mistakes that I want you to avoid and some strategies and synergies that sometimes get overlooked. And in today's episode of Optimize and Thrive, we are going to take a deep dive into building the perfect peptide stack. Welcome, Dr. Ange. What is going on?
Hello, Barry. Another great day, another great episode. I'm excited.
Today, we're going to get into combining peptides into protocols or stacks. So for those of you who don't know, what is a stack? What is a protocol? That is when we are intentionally combining synergistic or related in a positive way compounds that can help magnify effects, that can help prevent side effects, that can speed things up, right? Or address other issues. And so we're talking about the synergistic and smart application of different compounds together to produce a result that is better than just one of those compounds by themselves.
Yes. And, right now, not that I know of, I think there aren't a lot of resources that you can find, like books or that tell you all of these. I mean, I think they're becoming, this education is people are starting to want this, demand it, crave it, but still it's kind of hard to find what goes best with what.
It is. And in some cases, manufacturers have made it easy. There are some pre-built stacks that people are probably familiar with. So if you've ever heard of the Wolverine stack, that's very common, where it's a BPC 157 with a TB 500, and that can come as a compounded together single vial stack. Stuff like the Clo or Glow, which are multiple compounds into one vial. That is a stack. It's just combining things that generally are going to be working on different pathways, but all working together to enhance the effectiveness of everything else you have going on.
Right. And sometimes they're not. I mean, it's nice, for those because they're all in one bottle. It's great. So it's one injection. But many of these, like they are separate bottles or they're pills and injections. So just depending on what the goal is.
Right. And I think that is the number one point I want to make is that when you look at building a protocol or creating a stack or thinking about utilizing somebody else's protocol or somebody else's stack, it should always track back to you asking the question like, what is my goal right now? What's my number one goal? What's my number one goal? What's my number two goal? What's my number three goal? Because that is how we can work backwards to say, great, what else should we be doing to support that number one goal that might also have spillover into that second and third goal as well? Because if we take that approach, then we can really design something that's customized towards you, what you want to get from your protocol, and how those things then can be combined effectively.
I love that. So like if you're thinking, okay, well, number one goal is weight loss. My second is I want anti-aging. I want my skin to look better. And my third is I really want to focus on belly fat. Like what do you do? How do you make that work?
I agree. And I think let's take that as our example. Because you know what? We would find there are many people, both men and women, who would find themselves in their 40s and 50s and 60s. And that is the exact situation they find themselves in. I want to lose some weight. I want to lose belly fat in particular. I want to improve the way my skin looks. I want, and I throw in there, generally speaking, people want to have more energy as well.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. That probably is maybe number two. Yeah. We move that up.
Yeah. So it's like, generally speaking, I mean, the top 5 goals, right, are going to be some type of a body composition goal. I want to be a certain weight or I want to look a certain way, right? And that there's different ways we can kind of slice and dice that. But we have a body image, body desired state that we want to be in. Some people it's hyper athletic. Some people it's, crazy bodybuilder. But for a lot of people, it's just they want to be a leaner, I hate the word thin, but they want to be a smaller, healthier version of themselves.
Yeah, and just feel good in their body, I think people typically a lot of times what I hear from patients is that it's like, when I was usually it's like for women, a lot of times it's pre-kids, right? Like when I was, 30 and before it's like, "Oh, that was just mwah, that was so good. I just wanna if I could just get back there," and then we stack the other goals on top of that. Like, well, okay, so you're that weight, but, like, how about now we work on the muscle part of it, right? And the energy and everything else. But, yes, I agree. We have, I think, a lot of us in our mind, we kinda know where we feel best.
Totally. And when it comes to achieving a body weight goal, there is only one category of peptides that is doing all of the work, the heavy lifting, the transformational effects, and that's going to be a GLP. That's going to be a semaglutide, a tirzepatide, or a retatrutide, in whatever tides are coming, down the
The new
pipeline.
tide, yes,
Yeah, there are some other ones,
yes.
liraglutide, mazdutide, that are interesting compounds that are out there as well. But it's some kind of a variation of a GLP-1 that's either a single, a double, or a triple agonist in whatever combination that you find yourself in. We're big fans of the retatrutide. The Reta is the newest, most incredible compound that exists on planet Earth, in my opinion, one of the absolute top 5 compounds that exist on the planet. So incredible. And there really is nothing else in terms of body composition changes that can produce the results that a retatrutide can. And then also by extension, to a different degree, tirzepatide and semaglutide.
Yeah, and I would say right now tirzepatide is more available, and it's incredible, and I do prefer it over semaglutide, but for food noise control, tirzepatide is superior, but Reta, metabolism, and you can still eat, it's awesome.
Totally. So that if you have that kind of goal, a weight loss goal, that's going to be the beginning and the base of your stack. And that's for a lot of people where they start on peptides, is they're starting
Mhm.
on one of those compounds. Then we're going to start looking at, all right, what other pathways, what other systems do we want to address to help you hit your goals? Now, you mentioned kind of the anti-aging longevity, but specifically kind of around aesthetics, beauty, skin, hair, that type of thing. I brought up energy, so I want to definitely explore both of those. But then the other one too, I would throw in that top 5 for a lot of people are aches and pains,
Oh,
chronic
definitely.
conditions, chronic aches, old injuries,
Yes.
sore knees, sore joints, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely need to address those for many people because that can be preventing them from some of the movement that they want, some of the life activities that they want, that can ultimately then be derailing them from their larger body composition goals.
I love it. Well, actually, maybe we start with pain and inflammation. The reason why is because you're absolutely right. It's like, okay, weight loss is number one, which will definitely contribute to helping you have less impact on your joints, things like that. But it's really hard to think about anything else when you're in pain, you
It
know?
is. And
Yeah.
it's hard to move more. It's hard to work out or lift if you have injuries or if it's just a struggle to get out of bed. That's then where we need to start. So, again, this is how we work backwards to build a perfect protocol based on what is currently happening in your body. That is the number one thing that we need to start addressing so that you can ultimately build a better lifestyle. Because as cool as these compounds are, they are still dependent upon how you live your life and the decisions you make with the core things that really define health for human beings, which is what we eat, how we move, and how we rest and recover.
Yes, and, I think the one of the beautiful things about, say, like, the GLP-1s are I think a struggle that I've seen a lot over the years is that just the getting started part, and it can be very overwhelming and discouraging when someone is in pain and they're overweight, and it just to get started is so hard, right? Because they're tired too, and taking well, all it said the doctor is going, "All you need to do is just go to the gym and get started." And they're like, "You don't understand. I can't get out of bed," And so then you bring in a GLP-1, and what do we have? All of a sudden, the weight starts coming down without you in the beginning don't have to change anything. And I actually, I know that gets criticized, but actually, I think in the beginning, it's a beautiful thing because it's like this gift of movement, right? A gift of things of change, a gift of like here, like the body is going to start, making changes, moving for you, you're seeing progress and it's very encouraging. And the second thing that comes with that related to the pain is the decrease in inflammation. which I've seen in people, it's almost immediate. I've had people in pain from like chronic shoulder injury, their shoulders ache every day, their back aches every day. It's to the point it's like almost debilitating. 1 week after starting the GLP-1, they're like, the pain is 50% or more down.
Yeah, I think the numbers on the retatrutide one from some of the recent studies for joint pain was something like 70% plus reduction for
Yeah.
joint pain. Yeah, so you see it, and you see it in all of them because of the inflammation effect.
Mhm.
And then over time, less body weight, then that oftentimes in certain joints like knees, ankles, right, hips, right, that's going to have a direct impact too on how the body then can handle movement. But the inflammation is key. And so even for people who don't have a weight loss goal, and we might have a chronic condition, or we're in a state of inflammation, or we have metabolic dysfunction going on, metabolic disease, we have insulin resistance happening, we have that whole cocktail of terrible conditions. They might not care about losing weight, but I would still say, let's 100% start you with some type of a GLP to address all of these conditions.
100%. I have people who, they had no weight loss goal, but because they had heard of just how people feel, they were like, and they're in chronic pain for different reasons and different full body pain, right? And same thing. I mean, within a couple of weeks, I mean, getting back function because their pain is down. Oh, I would say like I've had people, most people 80 to 90% down in their pain.
And that's one where if you're coming at from a pain inflammation standpoint, we might run a lower dose that doesn't really titrate up too aggressively over time. And that's one that could just be in the mix as a longevity anti-inflammatory kind of system maintenance compound
Yes.
versus a body composition weight loss compound. But then there's additional things too that you can do to deal with the pain. Obviously, everyone at this point, well, maybe not everyone, but many, many people have heard of BPC 157, which is a phenomenal compound that can help drive angiogenesis and nutrient flow to areas that are damaged, right? So it's a compound that can be highly effective at repairing and restoring and accelerating the body's own natural healing tendencies. That's really what people experience from it.
Yes. And angiogenesis is like the creation of new blood flow, and which tends to, when we have like restrictions or tears or old scar tissue, and joints notoriously have very little blood flow to them. And so that's why it takes so long for them to heal. So that's a big deal. You get more blood and nutrient delivery, it makes a
And
difference.
then huge anti-inflammatory messaging from the BPC as well that systemically crosses the blood-brain barrier. So this is like neuroinflammation, neuroprotective, neurocognitive. So BPC, again, to help drive down inflammation, which can be driving a number of different disease states. This is a core compound that I almost always will look at putting into a person's stack. Then on top of that, if we have some more long-term chronic like tendon issues, some joint injuries, maybe some old injuries, then I would also look at combining that with something like a TB500. And those two things operate on different mechanisms, different pathways. And so that's why synergistically they're often combined together, where a BPC can be done daily. TB500 generally, I'm just going to run that a couple times a week.
Yeah, and so there are some blends, like, that's a Wolverine stack, that combo. So it could be helpful maybe to have, like, your Wolverine stack is what you do 2 days a week, and then your BPC, you're doing maybe the other 3 days a week, you know? And so that way we get that kind of differentiation, right?
Absolutely. That's a great, great, great combo. And then you can throw in something like a GHKCU. And that compound is wonderful and beautiful. It affects so many different processes in the body. And it's something that we, of course, we have it in much higher concentrations when we're younger. And as we age, those concentrations like fall off a cliff. So as we get into our 40s, 50s, and 60s, we have just a fraction of GHKCU operating in our system that we used to. And it has claim to fame as, of course, as a beauty molecule because of its effect on collagen and hair production. But it's really a regenerative like powerhouse. And so for people who are dealing with aches, pains, those types of chronic issues, musculoskeletal, GHKCU should absolutely be in the mix for that reason alone, is because it's again working on completely different pathways, signaling different molecules, different messages, flipping on different gene switches that all end up resulting in you healing faster and waking up one day and that chronic shoulder thing is gone. And you're like, whoa, what the hell? This is amazing, right? So that's another great compound I would say most people should consider putting into their stack.
Yeah, I love it, and that's gonna be in your glow and your clo or by itself, right? That copper peptide is gonna be in there, and what's interesting is that most people are actually deficient in copper, and we overstack zinc. Zinc is by far when I do urine, like 24-hour urine tests on people for different minerals and heavy metals, zinc is will come back at like 30,000% on most people, and the copper is almost non-existent in the panels, and I've seen this for 20 years, and I think probably why my guess is why this is because when you look at zinc, it's so common, right? It's in everything. It's in your multivitamin, it's in your immune blend, it's in your hair blend, it's in your hormone blend, right? It's when you get sick, what do you take? You grab some zinc, you chew on zinc, it's in your lozenges. We are over zinced, actually. It's too much. So most people don't know. So like if we're taking zinc on a daily basis for whatever reason, right? It's fine. You want 10% of copper. And so also your copper peptide injection is going to help you with that as well, right? And then we want to watch the levels because, if you're doing copper also, it's all about balance, right? If you're a copper, 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 and then you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to do my zinc. We're going to have our stores and we're going to have what's floating around. We also don't want to over copper ourselves either. So you got to take a break on that stuff too, right? And then watch your level.
Yeah, that's smart. And I think that, with the right balance, you can run GHKC long term and you can run BPC long term as well. So
Yes,
sometimes people
correct.
wonder about what's my protocol, my cycling protocol on that. I'm like, the cycling protocol, in my opinion, and from my experience, is in those cases, those compounds, run them as long as you want to run them, as long as you kind of create some balance with the GHKCU. And you can periodically off cycle something like a BPC, but you can also just run it. I, different opinions on that, but my experience, I've been continuously running BPC for a long time, and it's a great, phenomenal compound. But that can help address that pain state, right? And that can help synergize with that GLP in terms of the inflammatory response. Then the other thing we want to look at when we're building a perfect protocol and taking a deep dive is what is the state of your mitochondrial health and mitochondrial function? Because if we're looking at, hey, we're addressing inflammation, systemic, system-wide chronic inflammation, what is happening with the mitochondria and how can we help stabilize, repair, and restore their function? Because at the heart of it, so much of our health really comes down to how well are our mitochondria functioning.
I mean, God, it's tied to everything because the mitochondria are little energy factories or producers like in every single cell. So if you're thinking like, well, I need more brain energy and focus, well, mitochondria are in there. I need my muscles and tendons to repair my knee. Well, the mitochondria are in there too, and your collagen, and that cell and your muscle cell. Energy is like we like to think. Everybody wants energy. Besides weight and pain, energy definitely is the next concern when I see people, right? And most people are tired, which is really interesting. And the one thing I want to say about that is that there is no reason to be tired unless you're doing something, you're on some intensive medication regimen that you have to do, right? And it's knocking you down, it's temporary. But besides that, there is really no reason. We have so many tools to bring in to help us move and heal and make energy in the cell that, we need to figure it out, right?
And for a lot of people, when it comes to figuring out where to start, I'm generally going to recommend something like an SS31. Now, SS31 has become a little bit harder to find out there in the world of peptides and might show up under different names. So this is one that, because of an unfortunate awarding of an FDA drug status on this, there is a company now that has like a patent on it and have been aggressively being a-holes about trying to deny people access to that compound. But
That would never happen.
no, what? So SS31, though, is a mitochondrial repair agent as its primary function, does some other things, but helps restore the mitochondrial membrane, which is going to be key for nutrient and molecule transfer across that membrane, which is a key piece of how the mitochondrial functions to create the energy, right? So that's a great starting place for many people, is to run a cycle of SS31 that helps to repair their mitochondrial capacity, and then to move into something like a MOTC, MOTSC, to enhance then that mitochondrial's ability to output energy. So that would be increasing its capacity, right, and increasing its efficacy. And that combo together can be a really great cycle and a protocol to help repair, restore, and then push mitochondrial output.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love it. So that SS31. So SS31 cycling with your MOTC, you can, I mean, they worked a little differently. So you can do them together on the same day, same stack, right? And then you need to bring in NAD, ideally. I mean, then you're kind of giving the cell also additional energy fuel, right, for SS31 and for MOTC to work with. And then your B complex as well, because the way the electron transport chain works in the mitochondria, right, those are needed. Those B vitamins, like NAD is a B vitamin, and they all work in synergy, right? And most people also are B vitamin deficient when I'm checking them. And it's so important, when we're driving on, like, say if you take something like just SS31, it's amazing, it's beautiful. But remember, it's this system, right? And if you're always pushing one pathway, and you're not supporting the rest, you're going to get imbalance. And so this is where like the nutrition does ultimately come in, right? At least taking like your multivitamin, and everybody needs a B complex, a methylated B complex. We need some some base here, some foundation as well. And then we're going to build on that, right? And you know what? Get started with the fun stuff. Get started with the stuff that's going to make you feel amazing and move. And then just make sure you add these other things in.
Absolutely. The other one that is often slept on or less awareness around it would be methylene blue. And methylene blue in particular here can act to unjam the energy flow within the mitochondria. So it acts as an electron transport system to help things work a little bit better within the cell. And methylene blue I just think it's an awesome compound when sourced properly. And then that would be my number one. And then I do think on that one, the delivery mechanism, in my experience, I do feel it more directly when I run that as a buccal or like sublingual compound versus an oral compound. I've never seen an injectable methylene blue. I don't think that exists, but
there's IV, but
yeah.
but
Okay.
not, yeah, there is IV for different conditions, and some docs will do that, but it's pretty specialty.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was going to
yeah,
say, it's not one that I hear about or see about,
yeah,
but there's a buccal that we love, and from Transcriptions, that's my number one recommendation.
100%.
And that's a great compound to put in the mix 2-3 times a week.
I love it. It's so good. We've had some nice experiences with it, like when we were tired at conferences, and then you pop some little buccal like methylene blue, and you're like, woo, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. Because it really, it's helping the brain. And it's interesting because there is some misunderstanding around methylene blue, which I mean I had in the beginning as well. And you're like, my tissue, I'm going to turn blue. Like my tissue is going to turn blue. And that's really does not happen. Now, your tongue is going to turn blue for like a day, and there's really nothing you can do about
Quite
that.
blue.
Right.
Very,
Yeah.
very, very blue. The bluest blue you can imagine.
But it's pretty fun. It's a great conversation starter. Right.
Definitely. Just be aware of that.
Yeah.
I've done
Yeah.
it before. I've went to the dentist before, and
I did
never
too, actually. Yeah.
never have I had to explain something so many times to so many different people. It's like they brought in many people to see my mouth.
I love
But yeah,
it.
methylene blue is a phenomenal compound as part of that mitochondrial stack. And then, the other things you're going to want to look at is something in that growth hormone secretagogue, growth hormone support, right? So, generally speaking, we're looking at something like a tesamorelin potentially, or an ipamorelin, or ipamorelin CJC, or something like an MK777. So these are all different, different kind of effects, different pathways, but they're all different compounds that you're going to want to consider as part of that perfect protocol.
Yes, and yes, you can do one, and people, yeah, will combo them, and it's fantastic. So it'll help your pain, helps recovery. It's going to help with, like, your
Analysis, your
yeah, yeah,
anabolic muscle growth. I mean, it's going to influence all of those in a positive way. So,
yes.
growth hormone, I feel like everyone should be on some kind of something that's helping with their growth hormone to some degree, right? Some kind of support, whether that's a gentle support, low level, but effective, or something that is, ramped up a little bit because there's more support that's needed. But generally speaking, when you think about all of the boxes that a growth hormone secretagogue is going to check, so it's going to help with sleep. It's going to help with recovery. It's going to help with regeneration. It's going to help with metabolism. It's going to help with fat loss. It's going to help with muscle strength, right? It's going to help across all of these different categories. If your goals all fall into those categories, then I think it's then yes, we should be absolutely looking at getting one of these growth hormone or two synergistic growth hormone compounds into play.
Yeah, I agree. And I do feel like, I mean, I feel like they are subtle, although some people notice more like that immediately. They're like, do feel more rested. And I do feel like I'm sleeping better. And that's really nice. But really the long, all these other benefits are going to come from longer term
Typically,
use.
yeah, we're talking
Yeah.
over time. And I think when you're
Yeah.
looking at these compounds, you don't be thinking like all of them are going to be, man, I took that Tessamorelin and I'm on fire right now. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I mean, it more like over 6, 8 weeks, 12 weeks for these are not sledgehammer compounds. They're not creating crazy changes. So you don't want them to, right? That's
Yeah.
one
Takes
of,
time.
well, and that's one of the things when we're looking at growth hormone levels and we're looking at IGF levels and we're looking at these different processes in the body, we want things to not fall into super physiological categories because that can be dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, and not necessary. I mean, we don't need to do that, right? And the body's gonna make these shifts over time. I will say that, I mean, I do, the SS31, the MOTS-c, and the NAD, you do notice, like, you notice those pretty quickly, which is nice because that's energy, right? And so that's pretty encouraging. But the rest is it's just gonna take time, and know that it's making changes and you're having great things happen
Even something like a
underneath.
BPC, some people do experience very quick turnaround times, but many people don't. And it's again over that 4, 6, 8 week period where then all of a sudden things really start to become more noticeable because there's been this underlying improvements happening at the cellular tissue, tendon level that then all of a sudden show up as a reduction in pain or the cessation of pain or like the improvement in mobility or whatever the particular thing is. So, all these, I will caveat, yes, some are immediate, some are dramatic, many are an overtime play, but very different than a multivitamin overtime kind of play. Okay. We're not, so
Barry's not a fan of
yeah, we're
multivitamins.
not trying to give you the old bait and switch on the like, you just got to give it time. Well, it's
Right.
not like
No,
that,
no,
no.
no, no,
You will
no.
notice,
You
but
just
you
have
will
a
notice over time for some compounds. But after the GH compounds, right, and then we looked at those repair, restore, regeneration compounds. We looked at the GLPs. We looked at the mitochondria. Then when it comes to your protocol, there's a bunch of other miscellaneous stuff out there that's really interesting, really cool, really effective. And that's where you can kind of customize things, fine tune things, have some fun, or bring in some really niche specialized support based on what your condition is. So one compound that would fall into that category for me of kind of miscellaneous, like does this fit into your protocol or stack, would be something like an MT2 or an MT1, so melanotan 1 or melanotan 2. These compounds are commonly known as the Barbie compound or a tanning compound. And melanotan 1, that is one of its primary plays is that it increases the amount of melanin that your body's producing and your sensitivity to it. And so it can enhance and accelerate the tanning process. And then melanotan 2 is a more full featured version of that compound that does a variety of other things as well. Actually has some metabolic improvements, actually has a fairly significant impact on sexual function and desire, and can also do some other things that we don't want it to do. A resting heart rate increase can also drive some in some people potentially some, I wouldn't say anger or aggression, but it can have a mood altering effect, which some people it's very positive, some people find not so much. So you will find that MT2 is a little bit more like the wild child of that bunch, and one that some people are like a little bit hesitant to get into. I know
Mhm.
I was for a long time, and now though it really has become one of my favorite compounds.
Interesting. I know there's also if you overdose, like, or use too much, like a little nausea can make you feel sick. So you
Very
have to be
sensitive to the
careful.
nausea, always
Yeah.
super low on especially
Yeah.
MT2.
Yeah.
It can, because the side effects on MT2 are significant. Like MT2 is
Yeah.
like a no joke compound. Like
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
things,
Yes.
crazy
Yes.
things.
Crazy.
Like
Yeah.
I've had people who have taken too much,
Yeah.
been nauseous for days,
Yeah.
and then over the course of the next 2 weeks will change like 10 colors of skin,
Right. Right.
and you can't stop it.
Right.
There's literally nothing
Yeah.
you can do to stop
Yes,
it.
you're gonna be extremely strangely tan.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
tanner than you could ever
yeah,
imagine
yeah,
yourself being. So you
yeah.
got to be very careful with this compound if you, especially if you live in sunny regions.
Right.
But like that's an example of a specialized, interesting compound that could be at play for you.
Yeah, and just as a history of melanoma, I wouldn't recommend it. So unfortunately, I won't. Now that I've had that, will not be taking those compounds. But so that's just something to be aware of. Like if that's in your history, I definitely proceed with caution. Yeah.
For sure. Other one is related to those two is PT141. PT141 is just the sexual chain, the sexual stimulating component of the full MT2 chain. And so, if you want a little bit of libido support for both men and women, so it can stimulate and increase desire, horniness. It can also, for men, have an increase in erectile quality as well. And again, a little goes a long way. The horror stories of people taking too much and having unwanted erections that don't go away for a very long period of time. So,
Yeah, which is an emergency, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
you
4
don't,
hours.
yes,
So,
you want
yeah,
to
you hear
avoid.
the commercials.
Yeah.
We know. Yeah, yeah.
So, a little goes a long way.
And nausea. Just a note on that
Nausea,
one.
yep,
Just
same
gotta be
thing.
careful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Brief nausea often. If you nail it right, you almost always will experience a little bit of brief nausea. And then there are literally hundreds of other compounds that could potentially fit
Yes.
into your stack. Are there any off the top of your mind, though, that you think are worthwhile to mention? Just that, more often than not, it's something that you potentially recommend.
Oh, that's a good question. Yes. Well, a couple things I want to mention. There is a topical copper that I just want to kind of give a shout out to that we really love, and that's through Aura Wellness and our friend Dr. Nayan Patel, his formulation. And this is a beautiful. It looks like magic as a topical copper, so I would highly recommend that one. Then I think epitalon. I think we need to talk about that. Because for most of us, once you hit your 40s, 50s, 60s, you start thinking like, okay, wait a second, I'm starting to feel like this aging thing. I didn't really notice it so much before, but now it's becoming real. And epitalon has some really interesting studies around it where, the function of it in repair is a part of it is increasing like the little tail on our DNA, which is associated with longevity. And so I think it's definitely one to consider when we're thinking about our kind of just long-term health. And, there is a protocol around you can also do a regimen of cleanup of your cells, and that's a FOXO4, which can make people feel a little crummy because you're actually getting rid of cells that are no longer functioning well. They're known as like zombie cells or senescent cells. And so ideally, you're doing something like that or ozone, kind of clean up the system a little bit before you're doing an epitalon. And you can do a low dose too. It doesn't have to be in the same protocol that they did in the clinical trials. Like it can be lower dose, which I would recommend. Although I'm a hyper responder to everything, and I did the big protocol, the 10 milligram, and it was great. Felt fine.
Yeah, those are phenomenal longevity, anti-aging, cellular health, the FOXO4, DRI, and the epitalon. Highly recommend. And along those lines of totally different, but one that again, we sometimes forget to talk about is glutathione.
How? Like for a while, that's all we talked about. Like for a year. Yeah, yeah.
Glutathione is one of the absolute best compounds that you can run, and I think everyone should run glutathione.
I love it. It's beautiful, and you can do it in like many different forms, which is exciting. So oral.
Yeah, the two we're going to recommend are going to be like a sub-Q or even better, an IV push, which is my preferred method of that. But again, not accessible to just a day-to-day person. You have to have a doctor who's your colleague, right? In like a clinical setting, right? So, but that is my favorite. And I will say, again, a shout out to our man, Dr. Nayan, for his exceptional product, which
Oh,
is
yes.
a spray topical that uses polysaccharide channels to pull the glutathione molecule into the cell, into the body with a very high bioavailability. He makes the claim that it's even better than IV, but I love you, Dr. Nani, but draw the line.
It's a little hard to
Yeah.
compare
I would
when
just
the way
say
you
it's a
experience it.
phenomenal product. Does one
Yeah.
have to be better than the other? I mean,
Yeah.
let's just say they're both really, really
Yeah,
good.
can you do both?
Yeah.
Can you do both? Yes, you can. Yes. And glutathione, though, as a topical, it is a little stinky. It's amazing. So the glutarol is incredible. It does. Glutathione is made of sulfur. It's got a lot of sulfur, which is like you think sulfur is like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, stuff like that. So you get that kind of like little bit of stinky egg smell. Not when you do it IV. You can kind of taste that though as it's going through, right? You're like, what is that? Like, did I have eggs? But that passes. I mean, it goes away really quickly. So just something to note. If you're smelling that, that's real and fine.
And it doesn't linger, though. I
And it
would
doesn't
say it
linger.
just is. Yeah,
Yeah.
you just smell it for a moment and it passes. But glutathione is an incredible master antioxidant. Just from an inflammation standpoint, from a cellular function standpoint, so much of what we do depletes and utilizes and consumes glutathione within the body, especially if you enjoy your occasional glass of wine or whatever, like that, all making a huge dent into your glutathione stores. And so most people are going to be wildly deficient in their glutathione, and you will absolutely feel that compound when you like, especially if you're getting it as a push injection, as a push IV, but again, even sub Q, you will feel that compound, and it is a glorious feeling.
It is. And we were like, well, what do you mean? How I feel it? The brain loves glutathione. The brain will just suck that right up. And so we're looking at like neuro, repair actually. And also the immune system loves glutathione. So for all of us that have those chronic viruses, mono, which is really, really common, it stays in your system for the rest of your life, like, and all the other things we're exposed to in a daily basis, like that glutathione will come in there and help the immune system fight things and repair. The lungs also love glutathione. So, like, if that's a weak area for you and you're always like, you're the first person to get that cough and then it lingers, right? Then glutathione also should be a must for you as well. And it can be nebulized. So, something to consider if during that time of like having a cough or whatever, like you can just breathe it right in.
It's one that I think everyone should consider for their stack and figure out the best way for you to get it in, but definitely get it in. And we could frankly go on and on. I mean, there's so many different
How
like
much time do you
spin-off,
have?
like miscellaneous compounds that we'd recommend. Oh, what about this? You
Yeah. Oh,
mentioned,
wait, forgot
yeah, what
about.
about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
I have this thing going on. Chances are there's a
Mhm.
peptide for that, right? So
Mhm.
it's like one of the t-shirt concepts that I have sitting in my t-shirt is like
Oh
there's a
my gosh.
peptide for that,
Okay,
right?
we're doing that.
Because there
We're doing
really
that
is.
today.
Really
Like,
is.
yeah.
There's a peptide for that, and there's a peptide protocol and a stack for you
Yeah.
that can be fine-tuned for you, like personalized fits like a glove medicine. And so I highly encourage you to find a clinician, like somebody like a Sage or Dr. Angela, who has a clinical peptide program, which is going to give you the absolute best access to the highest quality clinical grade style peptides, and then the protocols and the synergies that go along with them creating some really lasting change. Or join someone like me in my school community at www.school.com/optimize, where I provide a number of these for researchers out there who are on their own and looking to get good information and protocols and sources. We have all of that and more inside that free community. So lots of great options there. And if you're a clinician out there and you're wondering, wait, did I just hear clinical peptide program? Like, tell me more. Head over to bodymindbiz.com, or direct message us, and we happy to talk you through that protocol, that program, how we can get a clinical peptide program up and running in your clinic in less than 7 days.
That's right. Yeah. It's going to be transformative. I mean, for you and your practice.
So highly recommend, if that's something of interest, that you get in touch, because it is an area that is growing rapidly, and patients are demanding their clinicians provide them access to clinical pharma grade style product as well as the protocols that they need to really implement them and get the results.
Yeah, please. I mean, from the level of just again, you just have general questions. Barry's school is amazing, like just a wealth of information, and clinicians like message me, and Barry is a wealth of information as well. I mean, he's got the protocols and the science down. He would put his super brain to work. But we are available, and we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you, and we look forward to see you on the next episode of Optimize and Thrive.
See you next time.